In this video, we're going to talk about Enochian magic and the tarot. Bart, what do you think?
Well, it's a huge subject, eh? If you look around, you can find it everywhere, eh?
You can, and it's a big part of the Book of Thoth by Aleister Crowley. You'd be surprised, actually. One of the main Liber he wrote on the Enochian Aethyrs is Liber 418. And he records his magical journey through the 30 Enochian Aethyrs, going around the desert in Algeria with Victor Neuberg in about December 1909. They got to there. Now, the thing you need to know at that time is that being gay in Europe was illegal. So everyone who's homosexual, they went to North Africa to find boys and have a good time. So this is also a bit of a junket, but Crowley went there specifically to go through the Enochian Aethyrs. And to do the Aethers, you have to do the call, which we're not going to do. It's the 19th call, isn't it, I think? And basically what they did was they recited this call. It's quite long, and they sort of created a circle. I think Aleister Crowley was basically just going through the Enochian, the calls and things like this, and study up on things before, and they create a circle in the sand or something. And Victor Neuberg would sit outside, and Crowley would sit in the middle, and they would start. And the interesting thing is that every vision, we have the time and date and place. So you can actually do a horoscope for each of these ethers. So the vision and the voice, it's an interesting name. There's one of the guys who's in the Golden Dawn, W.B. Yeats. He wrote a book called A Vision. And also, Madame Blavatsky wrote about these kind of things. And the voice is, when you hear a voice in a vision, it's usually a voice of authenticity. It's called the voice. And if a lot of Crowley's writings, you'll see he actually references the voice as well.
We have seen the voice in extraordinary orders of being as well.
Yeah, it's a very common, very important concept. So number 418 is an interesting number because it's the number of Chet, the 8th letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and Chet is also the chariot. So people think, oh, Enochian, oh, it's scary and all the rest of it. But actually, the vision of some of the tarot cards in the Book of Thoth are actually based upon Crowley's Enochian visions. So you've been seeing them all the time, you just didn't know. And he also has a section, there's 2 appendices in the Book of Thoth. There's the one at the back where you'd expect, there's various tables and things. We talked about some of them, divides of triads and other things. And there's another appendix at page 120, which Crowley lists some of the actual visions from the desert in there, and you can, if you compare them, you'll see that they're very similar to the pictures of the tarot cards. So, in terms of the vision, the voice, it's a very high up document. It's seen as initiation into Magus Templi, which is 8 = 3, and it's also considered to be the supernal triad of the crowned and conquering child, chaos, and Babalon. So they're all loaded terms in there. Babalon in particular, because Babalon we see in the last card, and also the Chariot card as well. So the entire visions is all centered around the Chariot card and the last card. The reason why the last card is because the last card is Teth, and Teth is spelled T-Yod-Tau, which is 419. So Chet is 418. Teth is 419.
Teth is the last card, eh?
It's the last card.
Is the last card. And they are both aren't they both paths that go horizontal on the Tree of Life?
Can't remember. I don't think that's it's nothing to worry about the Tree of Life on this point here, even though there's a lot of the Tree of Life in there. So if you read carefully the Chariot and the Lust card, things get conflated and moved around. There's a kind of a moving feast going on between. They think, well, that should be the sun, that shouldn't be in that one, and it's not, it's actually in the other one. It's confusing, and this is a lot of what happens with this system. So this is Crowley's record of his initiations, and you can see that very clearly in the descriptions that he gives. So just going back to what happened. They arrived in Algiers on November the 17th, 1909, with Victor Neuburg. His name is Frater Omnio Vincam, a neophyte of the Argentium Astrum, disguised as Victor Neuburg. So he actually started these visions in Mexico a few years earlier. I think he got into the 30th and the 29th ether, and he didn't get much further. So this is a later trip where he actually this is the mission, to go through all of the 30 ethers. And of course, you've had the visions of 1904 in the Great Pyramid with the Book of the Law. So, and in many respects, Liber 418 is considered as important, or nearly as important, as the Book of the Law, and of course it's a lot longer.
The second.
So if we don't know what Enochian magic is, it's a vast system. I mean, when Bart sort of talked about this, Bart said, oh, we have to do 10 videos, and I said, no, we don't, we can do it in one. And the reason is, Enochian magic is by John Dee, who was the chief astrologer to Queen Elizabeth I, and he had the biggest library in Europe, and he was having these and he worked with Edward Kelly, who's a bit of a crook, and Edward Kelly was a seer, and they had all these angelic visions, and they wrote them down. There's Enochian language as well. So the Enochian calls come from that. And there's, oh yes, Bart.
Well, what I find relevant is that, maybe you will get into that, but is that there is actually in Enochian magic, there's two different, what do you call it, sections.
There's more than two. There's more than two.
But the two main ones are the elementals, the elemental Enochian magic, where they work with the tablets.
Yeah. We're not doing that.
No way. And then you have on the other hand.
This is the most accessible way to get into it, is via the tarot, basically. There's a reference to at least one tarot card in every vision of the Enochian Aethyrs as well. So it's a remarkable record of visions. Yes, Bart.
So the second way is with the Enochian calls, which are 30 calls you have to vocalize in order to reach a higher state of consciousness.
It's the ones they use to invoke the energies, and a lot of them to do with the elements and the sub-elements as well. So we're not going to focus on that. We're just basically he recited calls, and he put the rose cross to his forehead, sort of like this or something like that. And he goes into this vision. Sometimes the first thing he sees is all about the rose cross, because the rose cross it's a symbol of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, and it's balanced energies. And of course, we see it here. This is the rose cross, basically. But he had a big one, sort of big solid thing.
So Aleister Crowley went in the desert with his friends to recite all the Enochian calls and record the visions he had from those.
Kind of, yes. I think he was pretty much, he needed to sort of recite them from memory, in particular the one that invokes Enochian calls. So he's just really immersed in this whole kind of thing. And they're traipsing around the desert as well to sort of, the calls were at various times. He must have some sort of thing, right now we're going to do either 27.
And in Algeria, probably getting off their heads on hashish.
Possibly. I couldn't possibly comment. So when Crowley had all of these visions, at a later point, and they're published in 1911, 2 years later. And this is what he had to say about his insights into the entire 30 ethers that he went through. And when you listen to this, think of the tarot as well, because it covers exactly the same ground. He said of the 30 ethers, they brought all systems of magical doctrine into harmonious relation. The symbolism of Asiatic cults, the ideas of the Kabbalists, Jewish and Greek, the arcana of the Gnostics, the pagan pantheon from Mithras to Mars, the mysteries of ancient Egypt, the initiations of Eleusis, Scandinavian saga, Celtic and Druidical ritual, Mexican and Polynesian traditions, the mysticism of Molinos, no less than that of Islam, fell into their proper places without the slightest tendency to quarrel. The whole of the past aeon appeared in perspective, and each element thereof surrendered its sovereignty to Horus, the crowned and conquering child, the Lord of the Aeon, announced in the Book of the Law. That's the kitchen sink, isn't it? There's everything in there. So this is the thing. It's complicated to work through, and he actually includes some of quotations from some of these ethers in the Book of Thoth, page 120. It's a strange place to put it. It comes just after the major arcana, before he goes on to the court cards and everything else. So he has an interesting quote also. We start with the Fall card. And this is actually from Liber Aleph. So we're going to jump around a bit. So this is the Fall card. In the description of the Fall card, he's talking about Enochian, and he's quoting from Liber Aleph. It has shown me that this heart is the heart that rejoiceth, and the serpent is the serpent dart. For herein all the symbols are interchangeable, for each one containeth in itself its own opposite. And this is the great mystery of the supernals that are beyond the abyss. For below the abyss, contradiction is division, but above the abyss, contradiction is unity. And there could be nothing true except by virtue of the contradiction that is contained in itself. We could spend a bit of time going through that one. But when we talk about three cards that goes to the fourth, the three cards are in unity, okay, in the supernals, and the fourth position is below the abyss on the High Priestess part of Tiphereth. And so that is the contradiction between those three. So we're back to 3 and 1 again. It's a very powerful system. So this is Crowley talking about the Fall card, which is in the supernal triangle from Keter to Hokmah. Isn't that right, Bart?
Yes, it is.
Are you following so far?
Yes, I am.
So this is the thing. This whole thing. Everything is in the supernals. He's talking about with the Enochian Aethyrs, basically, with the Fall card in particular, and the Chariot card and the Lust card. So then it then goes on to the Magus, and he mentions 3 ethers, 2 ethers. It's confusing. For the Magus card, one is the 3rd ether Zom, which is in the appendix, and he also mentions the 3rd ether Zip in the actual commentary for that card. You can find it because he either says ether or the vision and the voice in the text in the Book of Thoth. So that's one. Then there's a High Priestess. And this is an interesting one because the High Priestess is a lot to do with the 10th ether Zax. And this whole point of Korons on is the devil it has to go through, where clear speech goes into chaos, basically. And this is the abyss that crosses the central pillar from Keter to Tiphereth. And he quotes the dust devils from the Book of Lies. which is the chaos and the vortexes on the desert. And this is very much at the point of the 10th Ether, Zax. Zax is the scary one. It's scary going up. It's not scary going that way. We've been through this because it's basically when we're going from the supernals into matter, the third into the fourth position. That is technically kind of a Zax kind of thing that's going on in there. Then we go on to some court cards. No, sorry, no court cards. No court cards. We actually go on to some of the minor arcana. For the Three of Swords, he talks about VTA, Ether 14, I think, which is the city of the pyramids, and it's very dark and gloomy in there, basically. So the Three of Swords is very much about ethers.
Is this also from this appendix?
No, you see it's in the actual card of the Three of Swords, if you read it. And then the Five of Wands has 3 ethers referenced to it, no less. Three. Not just 1, 3. He talks about the second ether, Arn, the third ether, Zom, and the fourth ether, Paz. Now, Five of Wands is an interesting card because it's Saturn ruling Leo, and the Golden Dawn considers the Five of Wands to be the start of the precession of the equinoxes, rather than the second card, Two of Wands, basically. So everything goes from the Five of Wands, and when you put the Five of Wands on the Tree of Life, Saturn, it connects from Saturn, which is in the supernal system in Bina. So he's connecting those 3 with that point. So it's a very precise thing that he's doing there.
The Five of Wands is very similar to the Six of Wands.
Sorry?
The Five of Wands as a card looks very similar to the Six of Wands. It's got the same magical wands on it.
Yeah, but they're in a different pattern, aren't they?
Yes.
So it's a different sort of thing.
So you'd like presume that the 5 is like the 6 but with 1 missing, or the 6 is the 5 just with 1 extra.
Well, there's a 5 and a 6, isn't there? There's 5 symbols and 6 symbols.
Yeah, but if you hold them next to each other, you'll see it's actually the 6 has all the same things as on the 5 of Wands.
Well, the 6 also is, you've got to remember, is in Tippereth as well, so it's very close. You see, so that would be on the path of Tippereth, and the Five of Swords is above. So they are kind of, the Five of Swords is kind of on top of that path as well. So, moving on, we have the Lovers card. And just before the Lovers, he talks about the Enochian system. And then he says, the key is that this card, the Lovers, represents the creation of the world. The hierarchs held this secret as of transcendent importance. Consequently, the initiates who issued the tarot for use during the Aeon of Osiris superseded the original card above, described in the vision and the voice. They were concerned to create a new universe of their own. They were the fathers of science. Of course, mention universe is the universe card here as well. We'll come on to the universe in a bit. So this card again is very much a depiction of one of the ethers. Okay. Then we come on to the Chariot. And the Chariot, of course, is a representation of Eliphas Levi's design. But it's also, because it is Chet, which is 418, and the Libra associated with the 30 ethers is 418. And Chariot also has Abrahadabra in there as well, which is a very powerful number of magic too.
The abracadabra, it says on the card. The famous,
yes, it does in the frieze. Yes. Yeah.
What do you think? Is that a mistake, or is this one of his mysterious riddles?
Doesn't really matter. It's on there. People get lost in his minutiae. They just, they can't see the wood for the trees, basically. But it's when you read Crowley stuff, you find out abracadabra is so important to the system.
Really?
So really the Chariot is in essence the representation of the entire system of the 30 ethers. Then we come to an interesting one. The 3 nines, if you look at the description of the 4 nines, 3 nines, 4 nines, he mentions the 11th ether, IKH, in there. The lick is the one just before Zach's 10, so it was a kind of a big one to get there and to go beyond that point. So he's saying up the 9 Vic, so that's Yesod as well that's involved in all of this too. So it's something to look at. So we're basically going through all of these ones where the references are, and it's something you need to go back through and sort of see what else it's all about. Then we have the fortune card, and in the appendix it's referenced to 4th ether Paz, and that is a description of the fortune card that's in there. Okay. Then we have the lust card, which is to do with Babalon the beast, and that's the 14th ether. I can't remember the 14th ether. That's also in there as well. Yes, Bart.
That's Teth. You were just on about it.
Yes.
Teth.
Teth.
Yeah,
the lust.
Yeah, you were just on about it.
It's in the the art card, which is the polarity thing with the lovers card, is related to the 5th ether lit. There's a typo in there. He says the 4th ether, but it's actually the 5th one, which is the arrow. And he has a big description in the appendices all about the arrow of lit. So this is a huge area that you can sort of expand your knowledge and understanding of the art card. I think what Enochian does with these things, it expands beyond the barriers of the narrow remits of the card and takes you into other areas. And this is it could, part of it is, Crowley had a brilliant ability to connect things up that you wouldn't think were connected. And this is very much the lit. The arrow does this superbly well. So we could spend a whole series on one of these cards, but this is just to give you an overview of how important the Enochian system of the ethers is with the Book of Thoth. Then we get on to finally the universe card.
But don't you, the arrow in art? So obviously the arrow in art being part 2 of the lovers card, the arrow plays it's a big deal in that card.
Huge, yeah, they're connected. You need to read them together. He says that in the Book of Thoth. So this is alchemical, of course, and it's just a whole system that's going on with all of this as well. And then the universe is connected with number 9 zip, ZIP. And he says the universe is represented as a maiden, all innocence, adorned with all perfection. And he actually has a description of the in 9 zip in the appendix with the universe card. So that card is essentially that description with other bits added in, of course.
Yes.
So, people have been scared of the Enochian system all this time, and it's been in the tarot cards for the same amount of time.